Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's PartnerCast session, New AWS Well-Architected Tools APIs. Before we get started, we wanted to let you know that you can get AWS trained, accredited, and certified from any location. We have lots of free virtual and online offerings for all of your training needs. And all AWS certification exams now offer online proctoring. After this PartnerCast session, I'll be emailing you the deck. You'll get a link to the recording as well as a list of all the resources we've discussed today. If you have any questions at any time, please feel free to add them to the questions chat window. We've got several people on the call today standing by to help you with any and all questions. At reInvent 2020, we launched APIs for the AWS Well-Architected Tool. Today, you'll learn about the solutions that can enable you to conduct AWS Well-Architected Reviews more efficiently for your customers. And to get us started, I'd like to introduce Rodney Lester, a Principal Solutions Architect at AWS. Rodney, I pass it to you.
Thanks, Valerie. So as I was introduced, my name is Rodney Lester. I'm a Principal Solutions Architect for the AWS Well-Architected program itself. I've been involved with Well-Architected from the very beginning when we just basically got together and formed a set of questions that we put on an internal wiki. And I've been with the AWS Well-Architected program for the last 3.5 years. I started originally as the reliability pillar lead. What we're going to go over today is really the AWS Well-Architected tool itself. I'll talk about what it is and give you a quick overview. We're going to talk about the APIs themselves. We're going to have a couple of demos from current API integrations. We'll talk about other partners that have integrated it. And then we'll give you some resources at the end for how you can learn how to use these APIs. So the first thing I want to start out with is just a quick poll. So how many of you have heard of the AWS Well-Architected Framework, or have you heard of it? So basically the answers that you have here are yes, no, and unsure. If basically unsure if you think you've heard of it, but you really haven't investigated, it would be the answer. So I'll give you a few seconds here to respond. We're getting close to a very high percentage of responses.
That's great. Thank you, Rodney. And yeah, if it's completely anonymous, don't be shy about voting. So there should be, if you have your screen blown up to full screen, you may not be able to see the polling or be able to click on them. But if you minimize it, you should be able to click yes, no, or unsure. So we'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
All right. Looks like most people have had a chance to vote. So I'm going to go ahead and close it out and share the results.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Can you see that?
Yes, I can see the results. So it looks like 87% of you have heard of it, 4% of you have not, and 9% are unsure of whether or not you've heard of it. So that's good to know, right? So the Well-Architected tool is actually a implementation for learning and measuring against the Well-Architected framework, as well as learning how to make improvements in order to meet it. So let's talk a little bit about the Well-Architected tool, right? So it is the Well-Architected, an architecture review tool is really something that will allow you to measure your implementation against best practices. So the real important thing to understand here is that it's not an audit, right? So what we're really trying to do is teach our customers and our partners the best practices for implementing things on the cloud. So that's really an important piece of this, is the learning aspect. The tool itself allows you to conduct a review against the framework where you measure your architecture. It is not an audit. It's not a pass-fail thing. It is something that will allow our customers and partners to learn the best practices. But the real important part of the Well-Architected framework is we really want our customers to improve their architectures. So there's 5 pillars within the Well-Architected framework. They are operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, and cost optimization. And the reason we call them pillars is they are any kind of good architecture, of physical architecture, you have some pillars that you build things upon. These are the pillars for cloud architecture. So the tool itself gives you a mechanism for being able to define a workload. So a workload is really just a set of applications that that deliver a business function. Right, so it is deliberately vague because our customers really have a better idea of what infrastructure and applications they use to deliver a business function is than we do. So this allows our customers to basically encapsulate something as a workload. So you define that workload, you define some metadata around it, and then you can actually walk through a review where it'll walk you through the individual pillars one at a time. You do not have to do all the pillars. As a matter of fact, we often see that customers use a subset of the pillars. Sometimes they're here for a particular reason, like they want to improve their security, or they want to improve their reliability, or they want to improve their performance, or they're having operational issues, so they'd like to improve their operations. And of course, the very common use case is learn the methods for being able to perform good cost management, which is in the cost optimization pillar. When you're done with the review, you'll get presented with a list of the risks that have been exposed. We define them as high risk and medium risk. Basically, the reason why there's not a concrete definition on the risk is because it really is up to the customer to decide what the end risk is. We think that if you don't implement something that is defined as a high risk, that you're taking a significant risk to that workload being able to deliver what you want. A medium risk is something that it could have an impact, but it will probably not impact your business if it gets exposed, but it nonetheless will impact your operations or the way that you are currently working. You can generate a result, which basically gives you a PDF document that contains all the results of what the best practices were that you said you implemented, the ones that you said you didn't, with links off to the improvement plans for how to improve everything. And you can download that and share it. So with that, I'd like to do another quick poll, which is how many of you have ever used, those of you who are aware of the Well-Architected tool, how many of you have actually used the AWS Well-Architected tool? So once again, the three answers here are yes, no, and unsure.
Great. Thanks so much, Rodney. Lots of good votes coming in. We'll keep it open another couple seconds, then share out the feedback. Okay, looks like most people have had a chance to vote. I'll go ahead and close the poll and share it out. That's what we've got.
Yep, so the results are that a third of you, 33%, have used the Well-Architected tool. Most of you, 2/3 of you, 64%, have not, and there's 3% that are unsure. So let's talk about the tool itself, right? So the tool is in the console. So you actually have to go to the account and walk through it. One of the new things that we just introduced at reInvent was actually APIs to use the tool. So like most of our services, APIs are our preferred method usually for our customers to consume our services. And so these APIs have been in work for a while in order to ensure that they met the customer need. We actually ran a beta, and that's why we have a number of launch partners, is because our partners themselves were the ones that implemented these APIs and used them with actual customers. So what does the API basically provide you? Well, the nice thing about using the API is we often get questions over things like, how do I, where do I store the review itself? Should I have it in the account that the workload runs in, or should I manage it through a central account if I've got multiple accounts? Lots of those kinds of questions. One of the nice things about some of the integrations with our partners is that they can provide a single place for you to track the workload health. You can simply call the APIs and receive all the results. This also helps do things like automation of detection of the best practices, right? So whether or not you've implemented some of the best practices, our partners have implemented detection of that and can actually answer it for you. This provides an ability to do continuous monitoring of the workloads. So if you call that automation on a frequent basis, you could actually detect when you are no longer implementing that best practice. And one of the other major use cases is we often have customers who have large number of workloads where there's a central IT organization that generates a baseline that the workloads are deployed into. And so they often don't know the answers to some of the fundamental questions about the environment. This allows you to pre-fill the answers to those questions in the review. So if you want to have one of your workload architects heading up a review, you can provide a bunch of answers for what the environment is that they get. And the last thing that this gives you is it gives you a central place where you can populate information that cannot be automated in your product. So with that, we're actually going to pass off to our first partner demo. And this is going to be from Trend Micro Cloud One Conformity. And Aaron, I'm going to hand it off to you and let you introduce yourself.
Thanks very much, Rodney. Appreciate it. And certainly always a good discussion when we're talking about the well-architected framework. We at Trend value the relationship between Trend and AWS, but are also very proud of the recommendations that are provided from the well-architected framework, because, you know, with AWS you're being modest. With your hundreds of millions of implementations that you've seen, these pillars truly should be the kind of fundamental architecture and foundation for any organization that's planning to build out in their cloud environment. So what we do, or what we have done with the APIs that you've provided is take the findings from the tool and be able to pass them through our application, which is part of the Cloud One platform, off to other pieces or other components of AWS. So if you're using config, guard duty, Macie, another service that is valuable for the best practices and the setup of your infrastructure, you can use the API as well as the recommendations from the Well-Architected Framework to pass those along. So what I'm actually showing here is our knowledge base. It's publicly accessible, it's free. And what this is taking the API that's been created and launched at reInvent, and taking the data from the well-architected tool and passing it through our solution and platform. Once you utilize the platform, apologies, I've been signed out. Once you utilize the platform, you go to conformity, and this is what our configuration or misconfiguration management piece is. And so what we're allowing you to do then is take the best practices that are recommended by the well-architected framework, align them to the various pillars, right? So go scan through a bunch of the recommendations from each of those pillars and tell you how efficiently or how you're performing across those pillars. And I know, Rodney, you had recommended, hey, some customers come and only want to look at cost optimization because they're just look at savings, or only want to look at operational excellence. Most of our customers want to look at security. So you can pick and choose kind of how you do this. But the value that comes from the well-architected framework is to be able to go and to align to sort of the best practices that are recommended from the tool, from the solution, and by AWS. Right, so now what you can do is go through and see what's happening at a account by account and criteria by criteria level across all the pillars, to go through and see, okay, here you can see there's some violations that exist across a certain component. You need to go through and fix those violations that are tied to this component. And there's certain management that you can do. Certainly you can, if this is something in a non-production account, you can suppress this. If this is something that you need to say, oh my gosh, this is actually hair on fire sort of thing, you can do that. And all sort of that workflow management comes with it. The point isn't what I'm showcasing here from a workflow perspective. The point is that I'm getting this data, that I'm comparing it to the well-architected framework, and then I'm doing an assessment of how well your environment performs according to the tenets or the best practices of those 5 pillars. And that's really become the most valuable thing to our customers and to our partners with whom we work, because it showcases, one, the alignment to how AWS recommends on doing things, and that it truly is the best practice and sort of the Bible of how you would set up a cloud infrastructure environment. But two, it also gives you the visibility into what you can do from an action perspective. So you can take this, go through and say, all right, I need to do some sort of automation that's tied to this. I need to do some remediation that's tied to this. And you can kind of scale out and expand your team and expand your team's capabilities. Now that we have this integration, now that we're able to take the data and roll with it. So it's very much something that our customers have seen great value from. It is something that we publish the generic rules behind the solution and how we take the API information, and all that's kind of part of our knowledge base, and in the instruction set that ties back to the actual console, Rodney, that you mentioned, of where the well-architected tool is. So you can see kind of how we set it up and the data that is being utilized or is being taken from the integration. But when you get into the actual tool set, that's really where you start to see the value, and really where you can start to gain traction, get progress towards better compliance, and get progress towards aligning with the well-architected framework in a much more meaningful way. And that last piece that I mentioned is, you can also go through and take a set of the data that's passed from the well-architected framework. So if I go through and I look at a particular rule within the environment, I could go through and find information that's tied from the API. So I can see kind of what, and by the way, these account IDs are sanitized, so they refresh all the time. This is nothing unique. But I can see kind of what account, what region, and if there was any metadata that was tied along with that, that would also be passed along here. So it's very beneficial and valuable to have this integration and to leverage and to create action off of the integration. And that's how we're doing it with Cloud One, with Trend Micro's Cloud One conformity piece. Obviously, if you need more information or wants to see how this integration works, you can certainly reach out through AWS or reach out via the marketplace to get more details on this.
Thanks. Thanks for that. It's definitely, you did a good part of illustrating the two main use cases for the API integration. So the two there are really discovery, right? So I talked about how the nice thing about having discovery tools is that you can then use the APIs to automatically upload it, and that provides you the ability to actually then query across all your workloads to see what you've done and get insights as to what you need to do organizationally to improve your adherence to best practices. So one of the things about the well-architected review program itself is that I think it's important to understand that Amazon learned a long time ago that to conduct these reviews often. So it's not uncommon. Most companies have rules and requirements around conducting a review before something is launched or if a significant change is made. One of the things that the modern agile processes give you is that a small change adds up to large change over time. And so people often will not realize that they've conducted a large change over the course of time. And that's one of the realizations we came to ourselves. Internally, Amazon requires all systems to be reviewed at least annually. And we recommend to our customers the same thing. If you're doing more rapid changes, you may want to conduct it more often. So one of the things that the other use case that can be given to you is really the insights, right? So where are you failing? That you can have, you can be good in one area, and then over the course of turnover of time or turnover of requirements, people who are driving requirements, you may find that you start backsliding in certain places that you were good. And so this will give you the insight to be able to decide where that is and prioritize the training in order to make sure that you keep your priorities on what you want to be implemented correctly. So with that, we're actually going to go to our next demo, which is with NOps. And so I'm going to pass this off now to Randy. So Randy, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, great. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. And hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so this is Randy Newell. I head up marketing and business development and also the alliance management with AWS here at NOps. And I'm joined by John Ray, who's our director of technical operations, who's going to take us through a demonstration. I wanted to take you through just a couple of slides in the meantime, just to set it up if you're not familiar with NOps, to give you some context of what this is. So really 3 parts to this. What is NOps? What partners and customers are saying about NOps value to them right now, and then get into a demo. And there's really 2 parts to that John will take us through, which is using NOps for AWS Well-Architected Reviews, really targeting at consulting partners, and then how we're helping prepare and preview readiness for a foundational technical review that should be of interest to ISVs that are on the call. So a quick background. Where did NOps come from? This was created in the field, not in a lab, and initially came out of an AWS Premier Consulting partner called nClouds that has a very long list of credentials and was actually one of the launch partners for Well-Architected, and kind of not finding tooling that they needed to manage dynamic change that's that's typical in an AWS environment. They went and created the early versions of NOps, and this has now been carved out of nClouds and is a self-standing ISV. And the reason for mentioning that is NOps has DevOps built in, and it's got AWS partner requirements built into its DNA. So kind of you'll recognize that the product gets you and what your requirements are. So what is NOps today? It's cloud management for AWS, and it's used for monitoring, assessing, and managing the various trade-offs for AWS infrastructure optimization, right? So weighing the relative optimization of across the pillars of cost versus security versus performance. It is purpose-built and optimized for AWS Well-Architected Framework reviews. We are, big champions of Well-Architected. In fact, we look at Well-Architected from AWS as essentially, Well-Architected is for cloud what Agile is for software engineering. It really is a fantastic kind of measurement platform for making those various optimization trade-offs. And you'll see that it is integral in the way that the product is constructed. The secret sauce, the real superpower of what NOps does is auto discovery of high-risk issues across all the pillars of the Well-Architected framework. And we'll talk about some new functionality, specifically the integration with the Well-Architected Tool API, which we went GA at the same time that AWS did during reInvent, and then also this readiness around the AWS foundational technical reviews. We got a bunch of creds with AWS. We're an advanced technology partner, cloud management tools, competency, and so forth. The most relevant thing on this slide is the Net Promoter Score. We've got a fantastic following and a 90 on our customer sat score. There's been a lot of excitement around NOps. Some of the recent conversations and comments coming from everything from Doug Hume to Rudy Valdez to Matt Yashishin about the way that NOps works and supports, especially the work of partners, right? We do pride ourselves on being the partner's partner. And Doug calls this out, and in this deck, when you get it, you'll have links to these particular videos. What I wanted to actually spend just a minute on is what we're getting as feedback from partners who are using NOps to execute well-architected reviews and to differentiate their MSP practices. So first, it helps you deliver reviews 95% faster or more, right? And you can see some of the comments here, ILAP and PrimeStar. In fact, Prime TSR, sorry, they're actually claiming anywhere from 95% to a 4x improvement in speed in executing well-architected reviews. A 300% productivity gain using NOps, right? And this is a large systems integrator who's looking and finding 3x, and then Valcan, who's a great partner out of Brazil, finding a 2x improvement in productivity. Improving your SOW win rate to 80% or better. For those of you who are participating in the Well-Architected program and utilizing Well-Architected reviews for onboarding new customers, you know that the SOW win rate is really a great barometer of how you're doing, right? And here's Prime TSR talking about 100% acceptance rate of the remediation proposal since they started using NOPS. There's a great story here with this large systems integrator as well, which is that they're typically finding, in one particular case, for example, they went in, did one single well-architected review that turned into 9 reviews after the client saw what a well-architected review was, and followed on with 12 successful SOWs and 400K of billing in the first 4 months. This is really powerful for you to grow your business. We see that NOPS helps empower strategic client conversations. This is what the Well-Architected review is about, is bringing together key decision makers on your client side and empowering a conversation about the various trade-offs in optimizing the underlying AWS infrastructure. This is really exciting, right? And what we end up finding is that these conversations is core to growing your AWS business. Right, so Prime TSR talking about growing their governance practice 150%. What we found over in nClouds was that we could achieve that 15 to 50% cost savings. That's very typical, but that customers were reinvesting these savings and that MRR would be up 50 to 900% within the 12 to 18 months. Just an awesome, awesome story. So we do typically find 18 to 50% cost savings among customers. Probably the most notable one on this is with Uber ATG organization. These guys found 15% in the first 30 days at a very significant consumption level that they are at. We've included in here links to a bunch of key resources, everything from case studies from partners who are using NOPS to execute well-architected reviews and manage their MSP practices, to end customers, to some webinars, specifically the cost takeout at Uber. What I want to challenge you to as next steps would be there is a free trial, and the link is here so that you can spin up NOPS and utilize it for well-architected reviews and get the full functionality of the product. You can also do a free assessment if you are an ISV and you're looking forward to be informed about your readiness to go through an FTR with AWS. We will provide you free access to go into NOPS and run that readiness so that you understand where you are. If you're interested in any of these, you can obviously follow up with either me or John, but Toby Amy is the Director of Channel Sales. His email is here, and he's the primary contact for you, okay? So I want to switch over to John. John, you ready to go? John, you may be on mute, buddy. There you go.
I think I'm live now.
I can hear you, I can see you.
Outstanding. Got a little bit of a delay, that's okay. All right, thanks a lot, Randy. My name is John Ray. I'm the Director of Technical Operations over at NOPS, and I wanted to show you a little bit about how NOPS takes well-architected and gives you both the power to view well-architected compliance inside of your environment, if you're an end user, if you're an MSP kind of looking for that, but also how we leverage a construct we call workloads to provide you with the dynamic capability to keep up with all of this and even sync with the well-architected tool. So one of the things inside of NOPS is that well-architected permeates the entire product. So it's actually something that is constantly running, it's constantly evaluating your environment against it across all 5 pillars. We can actually see several issues here of compliance issues. So for instance, if we were to do something like say, show me, let's look for unencrypted EBS volumes, for instance. I can spell encrypted. Oops. So we can actually see that not only do we show it to you everywhere in the product, but you can actually drill in and see the compliance issues straight from the resources. So as you're going through the product and you're saying, hey, I've discovered something that is a problem, right? You can drill into any of these pillars from our rules section and see what your standing is, But if you are looking at an individual resource anywhere in our product, you can see whether or not it has a compliance issue and immediately start to get a hold of that. So that's really effective, but not everybody always looks at an overall global view of their AWS account. In fact, most folks are really only responsible for their small view of the world. And so what we've done is we've created this construct we call workloads. And workloads pretty much matches up to the AWS definition of a workload, right? It's a container of AWS resources. The difference is that our workloads are dynamic. So they're query defined. And when you define a query, any resource that matches that query is automatically added to a workload. So let's just let's take a look at what a well-architected workload might look like. Here's a workload that we built for another cast that we did during reInvent. And what you can see is when you define a workload, you get a list of resources that become attached to the workload. And again, we're exposing well-architected violations immediately to you. And inside of your workload summary, you'll see your assessment summary, which we'll get into in just a second. You'll see your ability to attach things to your workload. So for instance, an architecture diagram or maybe a troubleshooting doc or something like that that you want to attach so that when people are looking at this workload, they understand, hey, here's the checklist I need to go through, or here's who I need to get in touch with. You can see your overall summary of your status from a well-architected perspective, and you can even set individualized budgets at the workload level. So the way that we leverage the APIs primarily from AWS is in the ability to allow you to actually conduct a well-architected review directly from our tool. So when you define a workload, you will also select whether or not you want to sync that workload to an account in AWS. And what that allows you to do is actually run a well-architected review from the tool using the benefits of NOps. So you'll have your auto discovery capabilities. So if we were able to auto discover something about a particular account, we can go on ahead and start to answer questions for you right off the bat, give you information about it. We allow you to attach resources and diagrams to any of these particular questions throughout all 5 pillars. Those will be reflected in the reports that you can generate for your clients. And then what we allow you to do is actually update and sync these reports to AWS. And if you jump into the well-architected tool, right, you actually can see that these things get synced up to AWS. So as Randy was mentioning earlier, when you want to be a part of the well-architected program and you want to be able to conduct these reviews for your client, it's important to be able to take what you're doing in the tool and make sure that matches up to what you're doing from an AWS perspective. So we give you that capability to not only see all of your workloads from the perspective of the NOps tool, but also sync that to the well-architected tool in AWS. In much the same way, we can actually allow folks to do the FTR, the Foundational Technical Review, in kind of the same workflow where you're able to go through and answer the questions and you're able to attach things and get an assessment of where you're going to be from an FTR perspective. So overall, what we've tried to do is, since well-architected permeates our entire product and it's always on, it's always available, what we've tried to do is create this dynamic way, because workloads are always changing. Your AWS environment is constantly changing, and defining a static workload doesn't really help, right? Because that workload may change tomorrow. It may change with an auto-scaling event. It may change with a particular, you might upgrade some instance types and you might rename things, and then that invalidates your static workload. So by using tags and different things, we're able to dynamically help you keep up with these changes in your workload. And even from a well-architected perspective at that point, we're always constantly evaluating against the latest version of your workload in the environment. So that's the way that we kind of leverage well-architected in our tool. Like I said, it permeates the entire tool. You can always look and see in any of the categories a global kind of view, but you can also drill down. So you can drill down by account, by cloud formation stack, by tags, and really get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. And you can always search. You can do a metadata search, or you can do a particular search using our search DSL like I did earlier. and really get into which resources in your environment have what problems and what else may have those problems. What else is tagged the same way? What else can I look at? And then provide the ability to execute change on that by linking to external ticketing systems or plugging into your current change management process. So that's how NOps approaches the process of well-architected, and how we're able to use dynamic workloads to sync settings up to, your workload status up to AWS, and provide you an ability to access all of your workloads across all your clients, or for a client to access all of their workloads across all of their accounts. So I'll turn it back over. That's the end of that, and I'll turn it back over now.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for the demos. I really appreciate it. Hold on, get the right focus. So we actually launched with a number of people. These are two of the partners that we launched with, but we had a total of 7, actually 8, it looks like. So here are the partners that we launched with at reInvent. So you'll see that NOps and Trend Cloud One Conformity are 2 of those, but Accenture, Cloud Checker, Continuity Software, Datadog, Splunk, and Turbot were also partners that we launched with. We will keep a constant list of who have integrated at the URL that's located at the bottom, aws.amazon.com/well-architected-tools/partners. So if you are curious, you can always go look there to see who our current integrations are with. So with that, I'd like to pose the next question, which is a quick poll on what programming language you would use to develop your use of the APIs in. So obviously there's a plethora of programming languages, but I'm going to cover some of the major ones that I'm aware of being used. So Java, C#, Node.js, Python, or another programming language. So let's give some time here for answers to come in.
Great, thanks, Rodney. Yes, last poll for the day. We'd love to hear from you. We'll keep it open another few seconds, and then we'll share out the results. All right. Looks like most people have voted, so let's go ahead and we'll close it and share out the results. That's what we've got.
Thanks. Yeah, so interestingly, almost 50% of you, 49% of you use Python. The next largest is Java, followed by Node, followed by other. Now, obviously, other is we support a huge variety of languages in our SDKs, between all the way down to C, C++, but Go, PHP, etc. So there's a number of languages that are in that 13%, and 7% are C#. So that reflects my experience of working with our customers is a very similar mix in things for their infrastructure automation. So thanks for that response. So if you want to get started, there really is a API reference guide. It's really easy. Our documentation is very consistent between all our APIs, and so if you're used to reading the APIs for other services, you'll find that it reads very similar. So go to the API reference guide, which is on our docs.aws.amazon.com. And if you want to work with one of our partners, like I said, you can contact, see our list of partners at the Well-Architected Tool Partner page, which is listed there. So where would I like you to go from here, right? So what are the 3 key takeaways? What's your call to action, right? So one of them is that you can automate the AWS Well-Architected best practices with partners that are already integrated with the Well-Architected tool. You can also create your own integration, right? So build your own integration. And I really like the fact that John pointed out that you can, this integration includes automatically creating tickets in your ticketing systems. So that is definitely one of the other use cases is after you've automated discovery, you can automatically create tickets. And if you ever have any questions, you can reach out to us. So The email address there is AWS Well-Architected ISV at Amazon.com, and we'll get back to you. We have a ton of resources on Well-Architected. It has been around for 8 years. It's actually been publicly available for 5 years. So that we first published a white paper in 2016, actually 2013, and we first published pillar papers in 2016. So the Well-Architected Framework is where anyone can start. And we have a complete dedicated page under our Architecture Center, aws.amazon.com/architecture/well-architected. Once again, the other place that you can look is the existing partners that we have. Our Architecture Center has all kinds of white papers and solutions and pre-built solutions and other things that you can find at aws.amazon.com/architecture. And I mentioned the solutions themselves, right? So we have a number of vetted reference implementations that implement well-architected patterns themselves at aws.amazon.com/solutions. One of the new things that was introduced in solutions in the last year is what we call solutions constructs. So there's a piece within it that you can take pieces of solutions and construct your own solution as well. And we're very excited about our customers and partners being able to use those. And so with that, we do have some time for some questions.
Great, thank you so much, Rodney. Yes, if anyone has a question, please feel free to add it to the questions chat window. We've got lots of folks on the line, lots of experts ready to help you with any and all questions. While we're just waiting to see if there's any more questions that come in, just a friendly reminder, I'll be sending you an email. You'll get a link to the recording. You'll get a PDF of the deck, as well as all the resources discussed today. So you'll have all of that in a nice email. So you'll get all that information coming from me soon. All right, Rodney, it looks like, oh wait, we did have a question just come in. Which types of APIs do you have?
Yeah, so they're all implemented as REST APIs. So you've got gets and puts that you can get the list of workloads, you can get the specific answers to what the questions were, as well as you can put answers in there. You can list. You can actually get the improvement plans themselves. So there's a number of APIs in total. I don't, off the top of my head, have the exact number, but it's very detailed. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, you said perfect. Great response. Thank you. That's all the questions we have now, unless I wanted to open up to any of you. If there's any questions you get asked frequently, you think that might be helpful for this audience to learn, we can certainly share that, or if not, we can call it a wrap.
Yeah, I don't think I have any. So I think if there's no more questions, then I guess we're at the wrap.
Great. All right. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Rodney, thank you, Randy, Aaron, and John. We really appreciate your time. And thank you, everyone, for attending today's PartnerCast session. We hope to see you at a future session. Take care and have a great rest of your day. Bye.